Alright, welcome back to the channel for episode 3 on the X-1. So we just got done test running the fan in the plane with the tailpipe. And yeah, went really good. I'm going to show you guys a clip of that here in a second. The afterburner light is freaking awesome, especially at night. Mylar tailpipe exit is about 70-ish, between 70 and 75 millimeters. It kind of has this funky shape to match the exit here. But yeah, these are, I'm gonna get all these kind of tightened down and glued down and stuff. None of this is glued in yet, so anyways, but this is where it's all gonna sit. And did a couple of things. So I weighed it and I did a quick CG check. The battery right now is sitting right about here, which is good because it'll end up probably a little farther forward by the time it's all done. So that's great. It's not way up in the nose yet, so I got plenty of room to shift the battery. So that's good news. So I weighed it. It was 7 pounds with everything, minus the servos and obviously being finished. So it's going to end up heavier than 7 pounds. Hoping no more than 8.5. So if I could keep it at around 8 to 8.5, I'd be stoked on that. So anyways, we just, like I said, we just ran it up. And then I use this, so this measures airspeed, and I've used this for a long time to test the efflux speeds on tailpipes. So it's meant to mount on a model, and it tells you your top speed. But anyways, I kind of hold it back here while it's at full power and move it to a couple different spots and then check the speed. So we got 164 mile an hour efflux speed, which is pretty good. Should be good for around 120-ish to 130 miles an hour, maybe top speed up for the model, maybe a little bit more, we'll see. But anyways, pretty stoked on that. So we got a lot more work to do here, but this was kind of a cool shot. It shows the fan and the duct and everything else. So anyways, just about it for the night, and shut it down for the night and continue on this next week. So made some good progress this last week and hoping that this thing will be way farther along by the time this video comes out. So anyways, let's show you guys a clip of this thing running really quick. Alright, so the last video clip we left off doing some test runs with the fan before the fuselage was glued together. So yeah, I got a lot done this week. Ton of hours in this thing. I spent probably 10 hours, 12 hours just doing basic body work. Getting it to the point where I could primer it. So to recap everything that was done since the last video clip where we test ran it, obviously it's glued together now. So I had to do some cleanup work in the duct to even everything out. It looks really good now. So I got glued together. I glassed the top seam and the bottom seam. I used a heavier glass in the bottom because it's so close to the ground that it's probably going to get beat up back here on the flare. So it's a heavier glass. I got balsa up here with an aluminum tube for my pitot that's going to stick out. I did balsa in the cockpit area, balsa around here, and like I said, everything's been, it needs a little bit of body work still with some spackle just to kind of smooth all this transition stuff out. But it's pretty much there. I got to do some little stuff, like I need to work on the seams and the wings a little bit. I got to Bondo some of those in. But obviously the body work's pretty much all done. Oh, I mean, some big stuff back here. So tail's glued on, obviously. So I figured out how to do all the tail stuff. We got the servo location for the elevator. and the servo location for the rudder. And I had to fare in all this stuff. I use balsa all through here, and then it's all 3/4 ounce cloth glassed up to about right here. And then this was a plywood piece that I got from Paul. So yeah, lots of body work. I got to do the pitot tubes and the wingtips still. It took a while to get all of this looking the way it's supposed to. I'm super happy with the way this turned out though. The fairing, like the way it fares from the hump on the back into the tail is like, I don't want to say it's perfect because it's not, but it's really close. And then obviously now you can see the counterweights on the elevators, which turned out pretty cool. So let me get this thing on, you know, the back end's glued on now, obviously. So, ooh, that's a thin wing, boy. Shee. Anyways, let's get this thing flipped over and I'll show you guys the bottom. All right, so obviously just getting it to this point was a huge amount of work. I mean, obviously Paul has done a ton of work also. But to get the landing gear to work in here, to make it all fit and mount, and it's I can pull it off if I need to. It's 4 screws. So I had to build this whole skin. So I actually used 1/64 ply for this section because it's so flexible. All right, so this section was 1/64 plywood, bent around the formers of the plywood, and I'll pop this off and show you guys in a second. Then these flatter sections are 1/32 plywood. So I wanted something a little stiffer that could take up some abuse and everything. So basically I skinned the formers for the landing gear, and then I bonded everything in. Lots of Bondo on this thing. I ended up doing like a real tight pull of Bondo on the entire fuselage just to kind of fill in any small imperfections. When I was blending everything together, I ended up sanding into the glass a little bit too heavy in a couple spots, so I have to kind of go back, and what happened here is the glass is sanded away a little bit too much, and so the primer actually melted the foam out from underneath the weave. So I gotta like coat this with I gotta push in some epoxy in there or something, and then put some Bondo over it or some filler. And then I did balsa wood around the nose gear well. Like I said, this is all body work now. And this is all heavy glass all the way down the seam here. Because it's going to take, this section right here will hit the ground basically. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. So anyways, put the gear up. So you guys can see the gear tucked in there. So I still have to make the doors. I have some 3D printed doors from Paul that I might use, but I might just make some out of plywood too. We'll see. These doors are going to be a little trickier. The arms are a little bigger than scale, so this door now becomes bigger than scale. And also the pivot point of the arm, I think in the real one was closer to this radius right here, or it was a little bit higher up. So there is a little section of this corner on the scale door. It's just not as big as this. So I'm gonna have to get creative when I make these little doors, because on the original one, on the real plane, I'm pretty sure that this door is just attached to this arm. So when the arm comes out, the door is attached to it. The problem is, because of the geometry and everything else, when the gear come out, the doors would be like this basically, like almost touching the ground. So I think I'm gonna have to hinge the door to the center and have it sprung closed, and then it'll just rub on the arm like this. It'll just be compressed against the arm when it's sitting on when the gear down. So anyways, that's that. So now you can see the 4 screws that I have holding this in. So when they open the doors, you can get to those screws, and I'll show you what this all looks like when I pull this off. So just 4 screws. This whole thing just lifts straight up, and I got the gaps pretty tight. Pretty happy with it overall. I'll probably work them a little bit more, but let me go ahead and pull the gear out of it real quick. All right, so this just pulls out as a unit, which is super nice, because I know there's going to be times where we're going to adjust things or fix things or replace things or just work on other things. So I knew that this had to be removable. So that was definitely, you know, it was needed 100%. So I had to figure out how to make all that work. So rather than try and like say screw through this base plate here, because of the loads and stuff, I didn't think that would be a very good idea. So I went through the sides, and I'm thinking that's going to work pretty well. So let me put this gear down really quick. You didn't see that. And if you know how much I love Grumman's, you know what's in there. Okay, so this is 1/8 inch birch ply, the good stuff, which is probably what we should have used for the landing gear carriage, but it'll probably be all right. So these are glued to the foam. Obviously I cleaned this up real nice, and then because so like just some little stuff like see how this is offset, how the skin is offset. That's because it has these little nubs from the wires coming through here that, you know, as it slides down, they have to be cleared, right? So I just decided to extend the skin out over those, so now that I can slide it down in there without having the gap on the other side of the airplane be all weird. Same thing with this. I needed area for the servos to slip down in there, so you can see the plywood now. So, you know, I made this like sticks out a little bit. So now I have to figure out all the doors, which not looking forward to. No one likes gear doors. But what I've done here is, obviously you see the wings clearance for the tires. This is balsa just to cap off this whole thing. It kind of looked crappy, and to give a nice sharp edge to do body work too. Then plywood here and here, and it's glued to the wing and to the foam. I got a little balsa shelf here that the gear actually sit on, and then the wires from the back of the plane can come through above the retracts. I was thinking I was going to go through the whole assembly, so before I'd mounted everything, I had actually made a little channel to go through here and to come from the wing through this hole into the center, then into the body. But it turns out I don't really need that, which is good, because if I ever have to pull the gear out, I don't want to have to unhook all those wires and pull them back out through there. So anyways, that's where we're at with the gear. So this is super nice having this single unit that just pulls right out. But yeah, I still got more body work to do. I got to finalize the nose gear setup, so I got to do that still. I got to hinge everything, obviously servos, push rods. I'm gonna make some plastic covers that glue on over the top of the servos. I don't imagine ever having to really service the servos or take them out or change them out, but if we ever do, I'll just peel off the little cover, thin cover, and just do it that way. Yeah, I got to do pitot tubes in the wings. Obviously, I got to finalize body work, just lots of little stuff, you know, nothing major. Just most of the major body work's done, so now it's just finding all the little stuff that's wrong with it. And but yeah, super stoked on this thing. It's looking really cool. I am more than happy with it. So let me get this thing flipped back over. And yeah, once I figure out exactly where the battery goes, I'll be making a plywood tray for the battery. I'm thinking with all the weight I've added that the battery is probably going to be sitting just right here center in the cockpit. So, and then again, I have to make a cockpit floor hatch thingy that's going to kind of have the canopy frame on it and a pilot figurehead and a little bit of the gauges right here. Probably be magnets to hold that on. Just put a couple of magnets into the wood here, and yeah, I mean, look at that thing. It screams X-1. It's super cool, and I can't wait to see this thing finished. And as an added note, FMS makes a 1/6 scale Army Jeep, which is literally perfect for this airplane to tow it with. So they use Jeeps and like trucks and stuff to tow the real one. The real airplane is very small. It's only 30 feet long, which about the size of a Cessna 172 basically, with a 28-foot wingspan, which is less than probably about a Cessna 150 or even less than that. It's a very small plane. So anyways, they towed it around with trucks and stuff. They didn't typically use like actual tugs. But anyways, so I thought it'd be really cool if I had an RC Jeep that would tow it to the end of the runway, just like they would have for the actual powered takeoff that they did. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a tow bar and we're going to tow it maybe to and from the end of the runway just to make it more realistic. But anyways, just super stoked on this project, guys. This has been I'm 40 years old. This has been something I've probably dreamed about since I was old enough to look at books and listen to stories and watch movies. So, a long time. Really excited about this airplane, and I know a lot of other people are too, because they've probably have the same experiences with the airplane that I had, which is just dreaming about it. And it's such a neat plane with so much history and importance to even modern day fighter jets and other supersonic airplanes. So anyways, super pumped. You'll notice some new airplanes here. Well, not new, but new to me. My friend Brett Becker, I was visiting him, and he's also a huge fan of the X-1, so I had to go show it to him. He's visiting California at his parents' house, so he gave me a couple of old models, which I'm super excited to get flying. So they probably just need some new fuel lines and loosen the motors up, and they should be good to go. So maybe change a servo or two. But these airplanes probably haven't flown in, I would imagine, close to 20 years, or maybe even more. But anyways, pumped about those, and Bentley's super stoked. And I'll probably do some videos on that because I want to do some mods to it. And yeah, I'll show you guys how the tailpipe turned out. Kind of hard to see it, but there's the light in there. I got the inside of the pipe painted with like white paint and silver paint. Kind of hard to tell right now, but anyways, from the videos you guys, or the video clip that you saw earlier, this thing's pushing out pretty good thrust, 164 mile an hour exit speed, which I need to run the numbers to figure out how much thrust that is. But again, that's at 4,000 feet in the heat, so at lower altitudes it would be more. But anyways, the video's gone on long enough as it is. So next time, this thing will probably be pretty much flyable by the time you guys see the next video. It is not going to fly until September, and I probably won't reveal the final airplane until I get to St. George. I haven't decided yet. I might just show everyone, I might not, I don't know. Anyways, hope you guys liked it. I'm totally in love with this airplane, and I hope it never dies. Anyways, hope you guys liked the video, and we'll see you in the next one.